Welcome to lecture 36 of the fruit production course. This is a continuation of the part on fundamentals of fruit production. And today we'll be focusing on tree management, and the most important part of tree management will be pruning and training of trees. What is pruning? We'll start to define pruning. Pruning is basically cutting, or removing completely. Either you cut back or you remove any tree part. It is all called pruning. Whether you cut a root or a branch or a twig or small stem or even a bud. This also applies to flowers and fruits as well. In the case of flowers and fruits, it is pruning, but it is also called thinning. There's another term for it. But pruning specifically talks about the vegetative part and the root. So it can include any part of the plant. Now the tree in general produces many branches that needs to be cut. That means these branches are not really useful to the plant or to the tree. And they come in different parts of the tree. For example, we have crossing branches. That means a branch that crosses other branches. Okay, so this is coming from this side and it is crossing this way. This is called a crossing branch. So this branch needs to be removed. There's another branch here that's called double leader. We wanted to maintain, for example, only one. Sometimes we have to remove the old wood and keep the new wood. Sometimes we remove parts like suckers here at the bottom. Suckers are the parts of the plant that come, usually they are stems that come from the roots. All this needs to be pruned. Sometimes we prune things called spur, which is a very short stem. Sometimes we also prune something called water sprouts. Water sprouts are like suckers, but suckers come from the root. Water sprouts come from the shoot, from the branch itself. So these are the different parts that need to be pruned in a tree. Other reasons why you want to do pruning, besides restricting tree growth or tree size and directing tree growth, is to remove any part that has a disease, or maybe it is dead. You want to cut those out because they may damage the fruits and they don't really provide anything to the tree. So you want to remove those. Sometimes we want to promote vegetative or flowering buds. These buds will be promoted. That means they grow bigger. So these two parts will grow bigger and better. And to do that, you want to prune them. And it's always the case. If you notice, if you cut any branch of the tree, if you cut it here, this branch later on is going to branch into very different, more branches. You'll have 3, 4 branches. Sometimes this vegetative, and some of these branches actually produce flowers. So this becomes flowers. And that's all because you made the cut here. And that's why in this case, number 4, we want to promote vegetative or flowering buds. Here again, we are talking about the size of the tree, and we talked about this before because this is part of the orchard management too. In high density orchards, we also prune trees. These trees are pruned, and these trees are not pruned. And you can see, relative to the size of the individual, how big these trees compare to these ones. And you can see how much fruit and how the size of the fruit is. And it's all good because of pruning. And So why? Because when you have bigger trees like these, you are going to have more shoot and less fruit. That's why it's very important to do pruning for these kind of trees, and that's why it is also important to restrict the size. That means make it smaller, make the trees smaller. And so when you look at this slide, for example, you can see you have two kinds of trees. You can see a tree that is large in size, which is this one. This tree that is large in size, so we have a large tree, very big tree. This tree is very large. So a lot of the dry matter here, you can see the dry matter here, a lot of this dry matter that the tree produces by photosynthesis is going to go where? Most of it is going to go to the wood and the leaves, because it has too much wood and so many leaves here. And so only what's left is only 45% goes to the fruit. Of course, we always grow trees because we want to harvest the fruits. But here, only 45% of the trees goes to the fruit. Look at the smaller tree. This is a smaller tree. So now when you have a smaller tree, okay, you will have more fruits in this tree. Up to 75% of the dry matter goes to the fruit. And because the tree is small, 10% goes to the leaves and 15% goes to the wood. So the total wood and leaves is only 25% for small tree. But if you are going to look at the large tree, it's going to be 55% goes to the wood and the leaves, which is very useless. In this case, you need more of the dry matter go towards producing more fruits and bigger fruit size. And so in this case, you have more shoot than fruit if you have larger trees. That's why we prune the trees and make them shorter. Also, we prune the trees because we want to remove the dead part. These are dead parts of the tree that needs to be removed. And so we do pruning to remove that part that is already dead. We use different tools to prune trees. These are some of them. You can use so many tools, some small and large pruning shears. These are called pruning shears. And you will get to know this later on in details. So these are called pruning shears. And some of them are cut to small branches. Some are in larger branches. You have large branches. We use larger shears. Sometimes we use saw, like this one, or even we have electric saws too. So there are different tools that are used for pruning. Now, how do you do the pruning itself? It depends on the branch. If you have larger branch, like this one here on the left, this large branch or old branch is very large, also big in size. This one is very big in size. So you have to make 3 cuts. First of all, you cut here, first time, below the branch, and then you go ahead and cut this branch completely out, cut it. Then later on, you come back and make a straight, clean cut here. So the first one is cut 1/3 here, number 1. Number 2, you remove the branch. And number 3, you remove the remaining stub, this particular stub, which is from here to here. This also needs to be later on removed. So you have to remove this part once you are done. But the first thing you do is you cut here. Why do you do this? Because if you don't do this and you cut here, this branch might break and then it will take part of the bark of the tree. So it's very important to follow these steps 1, 2, and 3, and then you completely clean the tree in number 3. Whereas if you have a younger branch like this one here, all you have to do is cut where you're supposed to cut above the bud. Make sure you don't come too close or too far. Like this one is too far, this one is too close, this is one is too slabby. So the correct one is this one. which leaves a little bit of space, but not too close like this one and not too far like this one. Because if you leave these here, this part here, or very close here, or here, you are basically damaging the branch. This you are going to do a damage, and also this branch will be rotten. It will rot. It will cause rotting to these branches. So the correct pruning of younger branches is this one, and inshallah I will show you a video attached to this one later on. So what's the advantages of pruning? As you know, we wanted to do pruning because we wanted to have a smaller tree, shorter tree, and we want to direct the growth. Advantages of pruning include we have strong trunk and we have strong scaffold system. Now, what is a scaffold system? Scaffold system is this system. See here, these are called scaffold branches, which are the branches that are left after the pruning. So you have a whole tree with so many branches. Now, this is scaffold branches. In Arabic, it's called hayakil. Okay, that's a scaffold. Just like when you do construction work, you have scaffold system. This is the same thing. Okay, so this is scaffolding system that has been pruned. This is not. That's the difference. Now you want to have the branches all around the tree, in the north, in the south, southwest, northeast, or the west. So you have all distributed branches in all directions. Why is that important? Because you are going to get light from all directions, as you can see here. But if you have branches like this, you are not going to get that branching. So it's very important to prune correctly and have a strong trunk and a strong scaffolding system. Another reason for pruning is control fruit production. And so this is also important. As you know, pruning will encourage vegetative and reproductive bud development. Now, if you have pruning, you will control fruit production. How? Inducing the growth and development of fruiting shoots. So now here, for example, in the case of mango, as you can see, every time you prune, like now here, this is pruned because we cut here, we made a cut here. Now all these flowering branches are produced because of this cut, because we made the cut here. Now you have all these three branches are coming out and they are producing flowers. So you also, after, later on, when you have the fruits like this one here, you want to also reduce the number of fruit bearing branches because that will increase the fruit size. Why? Because less competition. So if you have less competition, that means you have low fruit number, means large fruit size. It's always like that. And you notice in many trees, if you have too many fruits, you will have small size. But if you have only 3 or 4, then you will have larger size. So to get this large size, we need to cut we need to reduce the number of fruit bearing branches. That's why we do the pruning there. Another reason we do pruning is to allow more light inside the tree. So now this is already a pruned tree and the light can go through from all directions. You can see here the spacing allows more light. So when you remove the dead, broken, crossing branches, that will make the light more inside the tree, and so it will enhance flowering and then later on fruiting. Also, when you spray with chemicals like pesticides, when you have too many branches, it doesn't allow for the pesticides to go inside the tree. But when you prune them, when you prune these branches, you allow more pesticides to go inside the tree, and so that facilitates insect and disease control by opening the tree and therefore increase the penetration of pesticides to the inside of the tree, inside branches. Again, the same story. We wanted to do pruning because we want to limit tree size, and you can see nowadays everywhere in all countries, most farmers will have smaller and smaller trees because that will make it easy to harvest. So smaller tree will have large fruits, as I explained to you before. You have large fruit and also easy harvest, and also better quality because these small tree will have more light, which means will have better color. Because you have more light, you have better color of the fruit. Whereas if you have larger trees like the one here you see on the left side, these are large trees, and so you have very small fruits, as you know, like the Omani mango, very small, very sour, and they are very high. They cannot be easily harvested. So what are the factors now that affect pruning? There are many issues that affect pruning. The first of all, the growth habit and the type of plants, because different plants will have different size and shape, and therefore the way you prune them will be very different. For example, the way you prune vines for grapes is different than the way you prune trees. The way you prune woody plants is different than herbaceous plants. So the growth habit is very important, and also the type of plant. Another thing is what's the stage of growth? Is the tree young, juvenile, or they are mature already, an adult? So here, juvenile means they don't produce fruits or flowers. So here, non-flowering yet. But adult trees will have flowers and fruits. So you have to be careful when you are going to prune which part of the tree you are going to prune if they are adult. If they are juvenile is also important to know. And to illustrate this better, you can see here the bearing habit of the fruit. Now the bearing habit, that means where the fruit is in each tree. The position and configuration of the flower buds, where are they? Now this is very different from tree to tree. For example, in peach, grapes, olives, and figs, all the fruits are produced laterally on shoots. So you can see the shoot here. For example, this is olive, and you can see the flowers are here and the fruits are here. Okay. Now the same thing goes for the peach. Okay, so the peach is also the same thing. It is on the sides. You can see here it's all on the sides. So it's lateral. So the case of the peach is laterally on shoots. So these shoots, that's where all the fruits are going to be. So it's very important to know where to cut when you are pruning. Second thing is, some of these trees have terminal shoots where the fruits are produced, and a good example of those are both the citrus. You can see here the citrus is terminal. You can see the mango is also terminals. Mango will always produce fruits on the last part of the branch. That's why it is called terminal. So the difference between these two, the first one is called lateral. That means these are the branch, and so all the fruits are going to be produced here. But the second part is terminal, so all the fruits will be produced at the end. That's why it's called terminal. So this is here, and this is lateral. So this is lateral, and this is terminal. That's the difference between them. But these two are all both shoots. All of them are called shoots. Yani branches. It means branches here. So that is shoots. Next type of bearing habit is called spurs. Spurs. And the spur is actually almost like a shoot, but it is shrunk. So spur is lateral fruiting compressed branch of woody plant. So this is it. This is the spur. So this spur is actually like a large shoot, but it is squeezed to become very small. So you can imagine this shoot is like the same thing like a shoot, but the shoot is very long, and this one is very short with very short internodes. Internode here is very wide. So this is a spur, and the second one is called a shoot. This is spur, and this one is shoot. So the difference between them is because they are compressed. They are very squeezed. Example of the plants that carry their fruits in spurs are almond and apricot. Okay, so this is almond and apricots. So this is the almond, and they are also laterally on the spur. So spur is like a shoot. So this is also lateral side of the shoot. Whereas the same thing also for apricots. You can see this is a spur, and you can see all the flowers along the small branch, which is called a spur. Now, apples and pear, this is example. Apples, they are carried out terminally on spur. So it's terminal on spur. This is spur, and this is one spur, and this is another spur. At the end of that spur, they do the fruiting. So here we have a spur, and the spur, if it is terminal, is going to be toward the end. If it is apricot and others, it will be here, laterally on this spur. So these trees, the difference between these trees and the other trees, the one before, these are produced in shoot, but they also can be terminal or lateral. Here, they are on spurs, and they are also lateral or terminal. Other factors that also affect the way you prune or how you prune it is pruning wounds. Sometimes when you cut, you create a wound, and therefore you need to cover this wound with fungicide, sometimes with paint. Farmers do that with paint. Another important information is rejuvenation. Rejuvenation is basically you are trying to rejuvenate the tree. Rejuvenate means making it juvenile. Re means again, re, and then juvenate means juvenile. Remember, juvenile means no flowering. So here I'm trying to produce tree with no flowers. That means I'm trying to bring back the tree to juvenile stage. If you do cut too much, then you are going to bring back the tree to rejuvenation. Don't do severe pruning. If you do too much pruning, you are going to make the tree younger. That means it will take time to flower again and produce fruit. You don't want to do that. So you have to be careful. Another reason for pruning, if you do too much pruning again, is sun scorching. There is a difference between light penetration and sun scorching. Because if you are going to cut the tree too much, you are going actually to create this issue, this problem. That means the fruit will be subjected to sun, and that will damage the fruit, as you can see here. Therefore, it is very important not to do that. Then here you can also see rejuvenation, because they cut it too much, and now these branches cannot produce fruits or flowers because they are rejuvenated. They are now rejuvenated, and so you have to be careful not to cut it too much. Also here, as I told you before, this is very important that you don't cut too much, because now you are exposing the fruit to strong sunlight. And here what you do is you paint the wound, because you don't want to cause any wounds on the tree. Now, there are two common techniques for pruning, two main techniques for pruning. The first one is called heading back. Now we have to understand these two different types, because it is very important. Heading back means cutting back the terminal portion of the branch to a bud. So basically, you don't cut the whole branch, but you cut only part of the branch. So you don't cut the whole thing, you only cut this part. You don't cut this whole thing, all right? You don't cut it from here, you cut only one part of the branch. This will destroy the apical dominance, That means it will allow branches, like now in this case you have two branches because you cut it in the middle. It will also stimulate lateral bud growth. It will encourage spreading of lateral tree growth and produces bushy and compact plant. So when you do this, basically this is the tree. Now if you see this, or let's make it an example. This is a tree. Okay, and now what you do with the hidden back, you cut here. Okay, this is how you cut. So now this cut is going to be developing more than the same scaffolding, but now this will be branching out, this will be branching out, this will be branching out. That's why this becomes bushy and short, compact, very short, because you cut only part of the branch. So this destroyed apical dominance. As you know, apical dominance means the stem will go on and on and on if it's not cut. But when you cut it here, it's going to destroy. That means it's going to allow the branches on the side to grow. That way you remove the apical dominance. So, and allow the lateral bud growth. So this is what happens really when you have hidden back. So this is a tree that has not been pruned yet. Now this is barking where the pruning will take place. So this is the blue branches is where so all these will be pruned. So this is called hidden back, remember? So hidden back cuts indicate by red line. This is where we're going to make the cut. So we are not removing the whole branch. Look at this. We are not removing the whole branch. We are only cutting the tip of the branch. There you go. Now we cut the tip of the branch. So if you only watch this part, you will understand how this is done. So it's very easy to do. If you focus only in these two branches, it's very simple. So here we have it. We marked it, and then we cut the tip, and we kept it the way it is. And then when they grow, these branches, the same branches like you see here, now they have grown into two more branches. So this is the first one. This is how it was before. Now we cut it, and finally, after 1 year, this is what we have. So you can see the whole tree. After pruning, it's like this, and now after 1 year, it's gonna look like this. It is bushy and with so much vegetative growth. This is the heading back. The same thing here, another example. You cut these branches, and each of them will develop more than one branch. So the tree will remain short and bushy. Another type of pruning is called thinning out. This is also another type of pruning that you have to learn. There are only two types actually. So remember that one was only removing part or the top of the branch. This one removing the whole branch. You can see here we are removing the whole branch. Well, that applies also to the shoot or to the spur as well, but you remove the whole thing. That way you'll encourage vertical growth. Vertical. The other one is shrubby. This is vertical, not wide, but it is long. Growth of terminal branches, longer, reduces the number of lateral branches, open up the tree by removing weak or non-fruiting branches, and produces, of course, larger trees because you are not making it shorter. You are cutting the whole branch. So the difference between this one and that one, here you are cutting the whole branch. You can see here, you're cutting the whole branch. So for example, we can see that here. These are the thinning out. Thinning out again, as I will show you now, removing this whole branch is called thinning out. If you only cut part of the branch, if you only cut here, that is heading back. But if you do this, it is thinning out. So this is heading back, this is thinning out. We are talking about this one. Now, when you cut the whole branch here and a whole branch here, then the tree will become taller. It will become taller, not bushy. And you can see again the examples here, like I showed you before. Before we did only cut these two branches on top. Now we are cutting the whole branch. And you can see it here. See, the tree becomes longer because we cut the branch. So after 1 year, we have the same tree, but the tree is growing much, much longer than before. So you can see this is the same branch here. It grew taller. Now it is growing much taller than before. There you go. Here it is, here again. So in this case, these branches become taller because we are doing things out before. The last part of this lecture is about training. And so training is like using the pruning technique, but to do what? It's actually a type of pruning. To direct tree shape and also to direct tree size, as well as plant growth. This is called training. When you train a tree, means you tie it with ropes and things like that. So it will, you can see these branches are bent because these people are trying to tie it. You can see here is the tying of the tree. So this branch, for example, now I'm doing this because I want to direct the tree shape. You can see I'm modifying the shape and also changing the size and direction of growth. Now the growth, instead of going up along this branch, it's going to go like this along the branch. Nothing will grow at the bottom. All of them will go upward because I tie it like that. So the branches here also like this. Okay, so that is called training. This is training basically. So training is direction of the tree shape and size and direction of the plant growth. It includes different techniques like bending, twisting, fastening branches, and so on. Training improves the tree growth and development because it provides better shade distribution. That means the light now, when you do training, you can see here the training is done on wires and on these wood or metal poles. So now you can see the tree is trained along these wires in this orchard. Screen barriers, you can see here the tree now, different kinds of training. You can see the trees are grown in a flat screen. This is called screen or barrier or hedges. You know hedges like you do with the landscaping, the same thing here. This is called a trailer system, and that's where the trees are grown. Later on, there is a machine or humans that will harvest the fruit from the sides of this screen or hedge. Training also provide shape to the tree. Okay, so again, here is the tree. Instead of normal growth, they bend it. You can see here the bending. So this tree is going in that direction. The next tree is going to the other direction. So this tree is going to go in this direction. So each tree is going in different directions. So they provide shape, they facilitate harvesting or spraying and cultivation, as well as better distribution of fruiting branches. So these branches are going to the east, these ones are going to the west, and it's going to go like this. You can see them all over the place. They are going in two different directions. This is called, and this is very important for temperate fruit trees, especially like apple, pear, apricot, plums, and so on. So training is very important for these kind of trees. Now, there are different systems that are being used, and these are only examples. The first system is called the leader system. That means I'm allowing only one main stem and all the other branches along that main stem. So here we have one stem, and on the sides we have the branches. So they have a main stem and the lateral branches around the sides. This is called central leader. There are different types of leader systems, but this is called central leader. That means one main stem and the other branches around it, like you see here with apples, or yeah, this is apples. So you have one stem and all these are branches on the side. You have one main stem and these branches. This is called central leader. Now, what other type? We have open center, also a leader system that is called open center. The main stem is in the middle here, it's cut. So you cut this stem, you cut the stem in the middle, and then the tree will become like open from the middle, or like a vase. So you can see here the same thing. They remove the middle branch and they left all these surrounding branches. So the main stem is cut at a desired length. New main lateral and vertical branches are maintained below the cut surface. So that's called open center. So you remove the middle branch, or you may remove the whole thing, or you can only cut it to a shorter length. Another kind of leader system, this is the second one. The third one is called modified leader. It's basically a zigzag type. So this is very unique. Central leader grows vertically, but it may become primary or secondary. Means what? So this is a tree, like this one here. Now, this is a tree with one branch. This is one, for example, this now, it made two branches, right? So you cut this branch because you want one leader, one branch. It cannot be a leader if there's more than one branch. So it's called modified leader. Now I modified it because I left one. Now this one will produce two again. So I cut again. Now I cut the secondary. Now this is primary again. This is secondary. This one will produce two. So I cut this one. I leave this one. So I cut the second one, and so on. It goes on like this. So I cut again this one and I keep this one. So this is primary. So in this case, we have a branch. It's actually a leader system, but it's not straight because I keep cutting every time. It branches. Still, it is the same thing. So just like this one, because here you can see we are doing a secondary branch. Now, once that's finished, we have to cut it and allow another branch, this is another branch, and so on. This is called modified leader system. B, another system usually used for some temperate fruits and also things like grapes, for example, as you can see here. This is grapes on this side. So a spiral system is basically a railing, a wire, or trellis. So this is the spiral system. You can see the wire here, another wire here, another wire on top, all the way to the end, all the way there. So you have poles like these two, metal ones, on the other side as well. And so the trees, where are the trees? The trees are here. You can see the trees grown here on this side. Next tree is on this side. Third tree on the right side. Fourth tree on the left side. And it goes on like this. This is called a spiral system or trellis system. So they are thrown to become flat or 2D. The plants are called espaliers because they follow the system. These are the espaliers. Now they are growing on both sides of the trellis system. So of course, this system not suitable for everything, suitable for certain plants like prune trees and also some of the berries as well as the grapes. It's also good for the grapes. It can also be used, the spiral system can be used for peach and apricot. Okay, like the broad angle branches you can see here. Sorry, I told you before, this is an open center. You can see it here. You can see it here. They cut the middle branch. The middle branch is cut, and all the other branches are allowed to grow on the side. For these other trees, there is a different kind of system. We use central or modified leader. So open center or vase is good for apricot and peach, whereas this system is very good for these apple trees. And I showed you before how this central or modified leader is done. There are so many trees. This is, as I mentioned before, this is really good for grapes and temperate crops like apple, pear, almond. Also good for peach, apricots, plants, and so on. Certain kinds of tropical, subtropical plants like citrus, for example, it doesn't require too much training, right? Actually, it doesn't require too much pruning at all. You only remove the unhealthy, the dead, the diseased, the crossing branches, and you maintain the citrus like we see here. This is all citrus, and so this is the system for citrus, whereas the other systems, trellis system, open center, modified leader, central leader, and spiral system, all good for berries, for grapes, for apples, for pear, for apricots, and so on. The system for grapes, there's another name for it. It's called cordon. It's also a spiral system, as I mentioned before, but there's a name for it. The name is cordon. Cordon is only talking about grapes, okay, grapevines. This is how they grow them, and they are actually very short. They grow like tomatoes, sometimes double, sometimes single. For example, here you have single because there's only one layer, but sometimes you have double, you have two layers. So these branches will be here and here. The branch will be here and here. The wire will be on two sides with a wire on top, and there's a wire here. So these trees are, or these branches will be growing there. This is how they prune them and they grow them. That way they can distribute the fruits on the sides of these two trellising systems. So you'll have the fruits on this side, on that side too. So this is where the grape is going to grow their fruits. It's called cordon system. This is called cordon system for growing grapes. So this is basically the end of the pruning and training lecture. I hope you find it useful. And if you have any comments or questions, please direct these questions to me in Moodle or in the comment section of YouTube, or you can also email me if you like. And all of this is available to you, as you already know. Thank you very much, and good luck to you. Bye bye. Fi aman Allah.